Happy September 3rd, 2020. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on today's show, I'm pleased to have the Granby boys basketball head coach, Wally Hansen. You can call him Walter. I'll call him Wally. Coach Hansen, it's great to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me on. And I just want to say, like, your podcasts have been awesome. I've watched a few, and you're doing a really good job. So keep up the good work, man. Appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. I've heard a lot about you from Field, who is now the assistant AD up in Rhode Island. You considered the fact I've also heard some good stuff from Coach Shortell, saying that you're the most favorite coach at Granby. So you could pay him later for that.
I'll do that.
Also a coach that you faced in the past, Coach Archambault at Canton. He kind of told me about you when I first started doing this podcast. And just kind of seeing, I was able to do some research, kind of what you've been doing at Granby. It's mighty impressive, man.
Thank you so much. And, three really good guys right there. Kurt is incredibly talented. He was an amazing player and great kids, and he's just so talented. I wish all the best for Kurt. He's fantastic. Coach Shortell, great coach, great football coach, like we were just talking about. Very good dude. Kids love him. And Coach Arch, I did watch your interview with Coach Archambault, and he's done a really good job with that program at Canton. And it's funny, we played a really good game against them for like the last game of the winter season, pretty much, besides like one round of the state tournament in March. And he did a really nice job. He does a really great job with the Canton boys program. And they're tough to beat because they're well coached. They play hard. They had a really good team this year, and then it was a good matchup. So three good guys.
Now, Coach, let's get down to business. I kind of want to know, before we break down what you have done at Granby, kind of just take me into your background, kind of your journey that led you to Granby.
Well, I mean, where do I begin? I've always wanted to teach. I teach and coach at Granby. I teach phys ed and health. This will be my 17th year. And this will be my 13th year coaching basketball. Fingers crossed, everything works out, and we can have a basketball season. But I started out in Granby in 2004, and I coached at one point 3 seasons, 7 or 8 seasons in a row. I coached the girls cross country team in the fall, boys basketball in the winter, and track and field in the spring. So, it's been a pretty long ride at Granby High School, and which I've loved. I grew up in Griswold, Connecticut, on the eastern part of the state. And, my education took me, I always wanted to be a phys ed teacher, always wanted to coach, kind of took me to Granby, where I got my first official teaching and coaching job. So that's kind of like the short end of it, the short story of it.
Now, something I've noticed in doing this podcast is that there's a lot of basketball coaches who are phys ed teachers. There's Coach, and I don't know if you know a lot of the coaches around Connecticut, but Coach Eric O'Toole, who's the head boys basketball coach at Derby in the NVL. You also have the head coach at Wethersfield for girls basketball, Jeff Russell, who are both phys ed teachers. So going into, I guess the question I have for you is, being the phys ed teacher, how does that relate to being a boys basketball or just a coach of a sport in general?
I think being in the school and teaching in the school, I think lends itself to not only coaching basketball, but, it helps create all of those really positive relationships you have with the school in general, the community in general, but also the kids that you teach and coach. So being involved for as long as I have and being in the school has helped my coaching in terms of, like, again, generating those relationships, being in the school, being able to hold kids accountable from a standpoint, like if anything's going on with grades or behavior, socially, and you can be really involved. And I think being 2019, 2020, as we move forward, as the kids are going to be kids, but like I feel like they need that extra help, that need that extra. It's good to have somebody on their side in the school and really creating those relationships with the kids. So teaching definitely helps with the coaching aspect.
And it kind of, in some ways, being a teacher and being within the school, it in some ways allows you, like you mentioned, to be able to see what your players are doing away from the baseball field or the football field or the basketball court, and just seeing how they are in the classroom, outside the classroom, so that in some ways you can, if not be there for them, just make
Yep.
sure that they're staying on the right path. Because as young men and women who are going through the high school years, there's going to be some turbulence as far as kind of going through from freshman to senior year. It's never just a smooth ride all the way through.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. You're absolutely right. And it's nice to kind of be in that process and in that journey with these kids, and, asking about stuff that goes beyond basketball. And that's kind of what makes it special. It's the old cliche with coaching. Like, it's more about, it's not just winning. I think you had a tweet the other day about, it's not about just winning championships. It's about, like, creating those relationships and fostering those relationships and, being a part of the kids' lives.
And I think a lot of people lose sight of that, because all I ever hear about is the top coaches. When they mention Bill Belichick and now Andy Reid, Andy Reid wasn't a top coach until he had a championship. But I kept thinking back, like, Andy Reid won a lot anywhere he's been. Anywhere he's been. I mean, look, he won 10, 11, 12, 10 something games with Donovan McNabb. He won, I think, 8 games with Michael Vick, who's in jail. Like, I mean, I could be off by a game or two, but the point I'm trying to make is that just because if you don't have a championship, it doesn't, that shouldn't cement the fact, okay, this guy's only an okay coach because he has, he doesn't have a championship. No, there's more to it. Look at the development with the players. Look what he's done with his staff. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with the head coach at Sheehan, but Coach Ferrazzi, before he won a championship,
Yep.
all of his assistants were going off and getting head coaching jobs at Norwalk and Tolland, and you can name all the schools, and that's a credit to the head coach. And I think a lot of people need to look at that.
Totally agree with you, without a doubt. And, like, Andy Reid is an outstanding coach, Super Bowl or not. I've heard a little about the Sheehan program, but what you're saying is, it's definitely true. These guys that, I'm sure those kids love them. I'm sure the staff who works for them, they love them. They want to, they want to move on. And I think also, being a coach, you want to empower your assistants and your kids to do better, to move on to another level. And to me, that's important. That's valuable.
I've always believed that the telling sign of a program, there's 3 things. And this is getting away from the winning and the championships. I'm talking about having sustainability and kind of having that, father, son, or mom to daughter kind of building through the program. It's
Sure.
How many players return? Do you have any on your staff that come back? Because if they want to get into coaching, which through the amount of years, I mean, you've been around 17 years with Granby, 13 with the program and such, just kind of seeing the players that come back. And then also, 2, kind of the recognition that you get within the community. Because if you have a positive, reputation within the community, as I've seen from a lot of coaches, looking from the football side with Coach Jenkins at Bunnell, yourself at Granby, Coach Shortell, who's only been there for a short time, but look what he's been doing with the football program. I can go on and on. But having those 3 attributes, in my opinion, kind of really define a program to have success in the long run, away from the wins, the losses, and the championships.
Definitely. And I think, looking at, like, having Kurt on my staff, and I've had other players who coach with me who wanted to come and help and do whatever they can to help the basketball program, whether it's scouting games, and, they'll reach out, they'll send me a text, they'll give me, Coach, what can I do to help? And again, that's the best. Like, that's so valuable and cool. And it's nice to have, the old players come back and reach out and want to do those things.
And I'm sure this group of players that will probably never be forgotten in Granby history is the 2013 team. The number 3 seed Granby against the number 25 seed Weaver in the championship game at Mohegan. Before we talk about that game in particular, kind of just take me into that season. Was there a feeling like that team had a chance to be a champion, or at least get that far? Or, like, was there anything that kind of gave it away?
So I look back at that season, and I have talked about this a little bit, a few times. It's a wonderful memory. It was a wonderful time. And I knew going into that season, we had some really good senior guards and really good, strong leadership with Mike Noyes and Carlin Champion, who were outstanding, just great, tough kids, leaders. Mike Noyes went on and he walked on at UConn, and he got a scholarship the last couple of years, and he's doing great things. Carlin's they're doing great things now. But I knew we were good with those two guards. We had some really good role players and some young players that could fill in. And then kind of what took us over the edge a little bit is we got a transfer kid from New York that year, Brett Boozer, who came in over the summer, and he was outstanding. We had open gyms over the summer that year, and he came in. I watched him for 30 seconds, like, woof, this kid can ball. And it says a lot about the leadership of that team, because other guys can be like, oh man, like this guy's going to take some time from me, this and that. But the leadership kind of like he was able to blend in really well. And, early on in the season, I think we ran off I think we lost our first game, and I think we won 15 games in a row, and with some really special endings like buzzer beaters and just really, late game, pulling games out at the end. And you kind of felt something was special, and we were talented. So that season, we won the regular season NCCC that year. We got crushed in the NCCC tournament final against Avon when Avon was in our league, and they were an outstanding team. We beat them in the regular season, but it was I could tell early on that we were going to be pretty good. I knew we had a pretty special team because of our leadership, because of our skill, because of the younger players and the role players that bought in. So I knew early on.
Do you think that losing early on, or I shouldn't even say early on, but losing the first game, as you said, and then losing in the championship game for the NCCC, do you think in some ways that kind of was good, just looking at it from a macro level? Because you lose the first game and it's like, okay, maybe we're not as good as, we think we are. So let's get back to the drawing board. And then you look at the championship game, albeit I'm not taking anything away. I mean, losing a championship game and, for the NCCC is you never want to lose that, especially getting that close.
Yes, yeah, absolutely not.
Thinking about going to now in the playoffs where it's one and done. If you lose, you're going home, your season's over. At least when you lose in an NCCC game or a championship game, you at least know that you have another game to go play for. So do you think that in some ways that kind of helped as far as your coaching aspects?
Without a doubt. That is absolutely helped. And it's almost like you were there. I remember our guys were definitely, cocky's the wrong word. I think we were a confident team. And I can't remember who we played that first game, but it was a tight game, and it was at home, and we lost, and it kind of humbled us up a little bit, and it kind of, guys all right, we have to kind of figure this out and work a little harder, because maybe we were a little too overconfident. And you're absolutely right. We definitely, losing that first game helped catapult us going forward. And I think we won our next game by 40. And I think we beat a really good Simsbury team the following game, and then it was on. And then guys were bought in, but they were more bought in okay, we can't take a day off. We have to work hard and practice every day. Again, sounds cliche, but guys were definitely a little more focused after that first loss. Now the NCCC championship game, again, I remember the fourth quarter, and if I had a white towel, I would have thrown it in, because we were just getting demolished. And Avon was fantastic. It was at our home court. They were fantastic. And we lost that game, and it took us a while to kind of recover from that, because we got a bye in the first round. I think we played that game on a Thursday night. I don't think we played our first state tournament game until Saturday. We needed all of that rest and all of that kind of recovery time to get us going again. So it was, I don't know if it was a blessing but we just needed the time after that game to kind of recuperate, to recover, and to get refocused and re-energized. And we had talked about during that week, like, listen, you know, I know we just got crushed. I know things didn't go our way that game, but now our goal is to go to the Mohegan Sun and win a state championship. And I drew a picture of the Mohegan, a picture of a sun in the locker room, I think like a couple of days prior to our first state tournament game. And it was just the sun. I put up a quote. I think it was a Doc Rivers quote about not wanting to lose and playing together, and I love the Celtics, so it was definitely something of that nature. And we needed that time to kind of get refocused and re-energized. And that first state tournament game we played was a great game. And there was a kid who shot the lights out. It was against East Hampton, and we were fortunate to even win that game. So, yes, to answer your question, it was a long story, but we needed those games to kind of get us going again.
You never want to peak at at least the way I see it, you never want to peak at the worst time, or
Nope.
I should say the best time. I mean, depending on how you view it, only because you think about, I keep going back to football, but we're close to football season. It's only a week.
Good. Yeah.
Why
Talk
not?
Football.
But I've always believed it's not so much the beginning of the season, because if you're coming off, I mean, I can't tell you how many teams I've seen win 7, 8, 9 in a row. They come out like they're hot on what, and then the last couple weeks things start to go down, and you're like, wait, did they peak? And now there's, you never want to be going up the mountain early. You kind of want to just slowly get there. And I think the same applies too for basketball, because especially because you're looking at, these are high school kids. There's a lot going on, social media. Yep. People are telling them how great they are. If they peak too early and they don't have a lot of adversity, then there comes a point where when that adversity does strike, and it does happen even to the best teams. I've seen it happen a lot. Then you wonder, okay, can they handle it? And then if, let's say, they have a couple bad games in a row, some of the best guys can't shoot, or there's an injury, and that happens at the worst time, you don't have that, fallback of, okay, we dealt with this already. We know how to deal with it. And I think for your team, as I said, losing that first game, losing the NCCC Championship game kind of allowed you to, get back up the mountain, as you said, winning that first game in the playoff against East Hampton, then slowly getting yourself up to that championship game.
Well, you're absolutely right. And, an example of that, and I've had teams over the years where we've had some great runs. We've won some games early. I think one year we started off 12-1, and I can't remember the specific year. And I've told this to other teams, like, even though you're hot, you're rolling, you got to stay humble, you got to stay focused. And something spiraled kind of like a bit out of control that year. We ended up 14-6. We were lost in the first round of the NCCC tournament, and we made a little bit of a run the state tournament, but like it was kind of like too little too late type of stuff. And I think that year, I remember Capital Prep in 2013 was very, very good. And they I don't know. I think they might have been 19-1. They were the 1 seed, and they got knocked off in the quarterfinals by Weaver. Put it to them, and that might have happened to that team that year, like what you're talking about. So you're right. You want to make sure you position your team as best you can to be peaking at the right time. Finding that magic formula is always tricky. Like, kids are different every year, and teams are different every year. But we definitely found the right formula in 2013.
Now, when you went up against Weaver, did you have, and I'm sure you had something as far as an idea of who they were, best players, not so good players, bench guys, top guys, what the coach liked to do, etc. Was there anything? What was the plan, I guess, going into that game?
So we played them in the regular season that year, and we beat them. We beat them, I wouldn't say handily, but it was a good going away win at our place. But they were, again, like you talk about peaking at the right time, they were peaking at the right time. They were playing really good basketball, to the point where, people were telling us that we were the underdogs, and which I was like, all right, that's fine. That's fine. I didn't agree with it, but I'm like, that's okay. But our game plan was to kind of, take it to them, not be aggressive, because they play an aggressive attacking style defense. They had guys that went to the basket. They had a really good freshman that year, Keandre Fair, who was outstanding, and they had really good players around them that could shoot. They could get to the basket. They were quick, they were fast, and we had an aggressive style as well, and we wanted to take it to them. It took us a little bit to get going, and they were fantastic. They were well coached. Coach Sylvan at the time, who is still a friend of mine. They were a good team. They were tough, and we had to adjust a little bit in terms of what we did in the second half. And we were very fortunate, and we were very. It was nice to win that game. It was nice to kind of finally get over that hump.
Watching some of the film, and there's not a lot out there because this was before social media and everything really became as big as it is now.
Yep.
Watching some of the video of that game, the one thing that really struck me was how much physicality was in both, not just one team in Weaver, but in your squad as well. Only because typically when you have one team that's aggressive, the other one will be like, okay, this team's more aggressive, we can't keep up. But it was back and forth, blow for blow. As you said, your team went to the basket, they went to the basket. It kind of reminded me almost like one of those 70s, 80 kind of, basketball games where it was physicality. Yes, there was some great shooting, but the stuff that we're losing now, which is going to the rim, getting fouls, those hard shots, hard to the rim layups. That's what that game kind of, reminded me of back in 2013.
It was definitely that game. And it was a heavyweight fight. It was back and forth. I mean, they took the big lead, and then we fought back, and, we both played very similar styles. And, it was just, it's kind of surreal to think back and to look back at it, but it was, both teams went at it, and we were fortunate to kind of have the ball last. Like, one of those, like, to use your football analogy, like it's a shootout. Whoever has the ball last is going to win. And, we were fortunate. We had the ball last. We made some free throws down the stretch, and we were able to kind of get over the top and get over the hump. But it was an outstanding experience, a great game, being at the Mohegan Sun, and no one really lost that day. It was just one of those things where, like I said, we had the ball last, and we were able to finish it off.
And you won the championship, first time in program being able to get that. And I think something that will never be forgotten as far as that group of players, but also for yourself, because it was an accomplishment that, I'm sure you were, it probably was something that you felt for the next month or two, maybe even longer, because you got the ring, championship, the whole nine. But being able to see, I think, the players' faces, because I'm sure you could probably attest to this, the amount of hard work that they went through during that season and the adversity that they dealt with.
Oh, without a doubt. We were on cloud nine for probably more than a month. It was definitely an amazing experience. Our community came together, and they were terrific. We had an outstanding crowd that day, and the kids in Granby are awesome. We have, if you come to our gym for a home game, again, let's cross our fingers that we can have basketball. Like it's an awesome environment, and they kind of were able to bring that environment to the Mohegan Sun, and it was just a great experience for the whole town, for the whole community, for obviously for the kids, the rest of the coaching staff. It was really cool. It was a really cool experience.
Now I want to fast forward a little bit to 2019 when you won the NCCC title. Now this was the first one since 2006. And I saw an interview that you did after the game for, I think it was a reporter on Game Time, or might just be a reporter in general. But I heard you say, and I had to, kind of go back a couple of times, like, that's pretty cool. I like that. You said that you put pictures of the last time that they won the title, and you put that all over, I think, the locker room, just as like a reminder, like just for the players to see, like, hey, this can happen. It has in the past. It's not impossible. And I think that's, a little bit of Belichickian as far as just putting it in there, just put it in their mind, just have them see it, not having to tell them, but just saying, picture's right here, and I'm just going to go coach. That's it.
So a little backstory to that. So we've been to, since 2006, I took over in 06-07. So that I didn't coach in 06. That was Colin Smith. And we had been at the time to 4 NCCC title games, and we've lost all 4. So my assistant coach, Coach Dombrowski, Coach Curry is like, listen, if you lose this game, I don't know if we can coach with you anymore. Like 5 in a row. So, and then we lost again this year. But, one of the messages I had for the kids is like, also, you go back to like winning a championship and, that feeling and that vibe. And we put up a few pictures of other, not only with our squad, but like of other teams who had just recently won conference tournament championships. And I told the kids, it's like, look at the picture. Like, do you see any non-smiling faces in those pictures? Like, they're all happy. They have the trophy. They're taking the picture. You're going to be on game time. You're going to be, wherever you're going to be. But like the message was like, it's a fun thing to win a championship. And that was kind of, what we went with. And, we played really well in that game. Like we definitely, and that was a really good Ellington team too, that we beat. So it was definitely finally to kind of like win an NCCC championship was get something off your plate. Cause we had been to, like I said, we had been to 4 prior to that. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty much the message.
Now looking at kind of how, cause a lot of times when I think of coaches who have won a championship, I mean, I know we're going back to the championship talk, but because we're there, when I think of a coach who's won the championship as far as the state title, Super Bowl, etc., usually they've won their division, but you kind of did the other way around. You won the state championship and then you won the division years later. So looking back on that, does it seem kind of, I don't want to say odd, but do you think in some ways maybe it was better that you won the championship first? Because then if you won the division title, it's like, okay, well, you got there, but you couldn't get over the hump of getting the championship in the States. But you got the first one down, so that the division one was maybe a little bit easier.
So I think, like looking, that's an interesting point because I feel that, again, winning a title is awesome. And as you get older, when you're coaching, you kind of realize like it's not just about winning a championship. It's more about like I said earlier, like being with the kids, help empowering them to be leaders and to grow and to keep fostering and building those relationships with the kids. But like, it definitely helped that, winning that championship in 2013, I helped, not build the culture is the wrong word, but like help maintain the culture of here's our expectations right now. Our expectations are to work hard in practice, to do the best you can, but, get to the level of like, we want to compete for a division championship. We want to compete for an NCCC title. We want to compete for a regular season title. We want to compete for the tournament title. We want to go compete for whatever division we're in. That's the expectation, the standard that we want to set from a culture standpoint. But, definitely winning that state title, to your point, earlier kind of helped us, going forward as a culture, as a, from a basketball perspective and getting kids to buy in to what you're trying to do. Even though that like winning that championship is just part of the process of like working hard every day and giving everything you got.
That's interesting because a lot of times when I ask coaches about kind of the culture aspect, one coach in particular, and again, yeah, I keep reiterating, going back to football again.
Okay, it's all good.
I've had football a lot of football coaches. I've had a lot of football on here, let me tell you. But the coach at Anna Maria, Coach Mulrooney, said he doesn't like the word culture because it's so, I guess, overused. Because he brought up a term, and I mentioned this about how there was an analyst on ESPN, Trent Dilfer, who started to use the word arm talent because a lot of scouts were using arm strength, but arm strength wasn't really describing exactly what the arm was doing. So when he started using arm talent, every scout started to steal it and kind of using their own terminology of what it meant, which is the short throws, the intermediate throws, the down the middle throws. I can go on and on. But the point I'm trying to make is he was trying to describe culture, but not using that word. So the reason why I bring that up is for you mentioning how the fact of winning the state title in 2013, being able to, I guess, lay the foundation, even though you already laid it well beforehand. But I guess what I'm trying to say is showing that, hey, it's possible even for Granby to get there. It's possible. It can happen. So in a lot of ways, it kind of showed the players like, okay, if they can do it, we can do it. There's no reason why we can't. And we don't want to let the team of 2018 down, or 2017 or 2013 or whatever. You know what I'm trying to say?
I know exactly what you're trying to say. And you're right. Like the term culture can definitely be overused. You know, with us, with Granby, with like, because we have a lot of really good programs that have good, again, cultures, if you will. But like I like to look at it from a positive perspective of like, when I say what we're trying to do in cultures, we're trying to build these student athletes to want to come to practice on time every day, do the work that's necessary in practice, and trust that the coaching staff, the other players are here to kind of build towards something, whether it's winning a basketball game, whether it's improving and developing players and skills and all of that. So when I say the term culture, it's more or less like it's a positive thing, and trying to build your team, your program into the best it can possibly be. And like I said, and I think Kurt mentioned it too, and I've had a lot of good role models in terms of like other programs at Granby, and what they do, and seeing the positive things with their kids and the kids in the school. So, it's an overall good culture and climate and all of that good stuff.
Coach Hansen, we've just about run out of time, but I really do appreciate you coming on. It was great to be able to talk a little bit about the Granby basketball program from the past, a little bit of what happened from 2 years ago. I know we didn't get into the season of what potentially could be the season, but I think being able to go back in the past, I think is, at least for what we are and what we're dealing with right now with COVID and everything, I think it's good to be able to look back on the happy times when people could actually go to the games, and it wasn't, like, what we're seeing in baseball, which is empty stands. I'm seeing cardboard cutouts of people, which is kind of freaky.
It
But
is kind of weird.
it's very weird. And I still, I'm a huge baseball junkie, but watching the games, it's like, I don't know, I feel like something's off. But going back to what I said, I think being able to look back in the past and looking at the happy times for Granby, I think is what was needed. And being able to have you on was great.
Thank you so much. Keep up the good work, man. You're doing a great job. Thank you so much again. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Anytime. That'll wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. And remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent. And I'm on a journey to find them all. Have a good one, everybody.